River and the Black Cat, which is a series of improvisations which I wrote because I got tired of thinking of wonderful images and failing to write them down and then completely forgetting them. So I decided as a kind of discipline that when I walked to work at the University of Prešov along the banks of the river Torisa, I would, before I started teaching, I would write down what passed through my mind as I was going to work, and then when I returned from work I did the same thing, and before I knew it, in a matter of 3 months, I had 64 improvisations. The first one is a kind of prose poem. It works on the 1934 film The Black Cat, which starred Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff, and has nothing to do with the short story by Edgar Allan Poe. The Black Cat, a motion picture. There's nothing to compare with the unintended honeymoon that we couldn't have imagined. That's what happens when we think outside the box of premature burial. Luckily, we aren't laid to rest like Attila the Hun under the river, temporarily diverted, so his grave wouldn't be robbed. We only have to scrabble through a topsoil of experience to emerge in the fresh air of unfamiliar language, albeit inside a railway compartment with somebody who looks like your Uncle Ivan. He once turned down the opportunity for political asylum in Sweden, but decided against exile from his language and lived and died in a one-room flat where your brother and I found him 4 days after your last conversation with him, collapsed by his fridge with one side of his face squeezed up. At the funeral, his face had been straightened into an ironical smile. One arm had partially resisted being conventionally positioned by his side in the best deceased manner, and remained slightly raised as if he still wished to make an artistic point. The man in the compartment with us died 40 years before Uncle Ivan. The film that we're in is very dark in texture, a bad but the only surviving print of a two-reeler. The Black Cat should never be allowed near it, despite her claim on the title, the damage her claws could do. Somewhere between Budapest and Visegrad, were forced to spend the night in a masterpiece of construction, built upon a masterpiece of destruction, as Uncle Ivan's double observes, a psychiatrist whom I catch touching your face while you sleep. He has an intense and all-consuming horror of cats. The villain, the owner of our accommodation, lisps before carrying his purring familiar past an earlier victim in a glass case, the psychiatrist's wife. "Are we not the living dead?" he asks, and later remarks that even the phone is dead. An organ plays. It is the dark of the moon, and you're about to be sacrificed at a black mass. The psychiatrist rescues you and begins to flay the villain who, it is revealed, has not only embalmed the psychiatrist's wife, but married his daughter, whom he's just murdered. The Black Cat, sensing disaster, departs, as we flee the house likewise to recover in Budapest. I read a review of my latest book, on the whole, positive, but failing to comprehend the linguistic reality from which we've escaped. We know that we can prey on others, that from time to time there are those who make monsters of us. Rivers whisper beneath our feet of the bones they hide, that there's a grand narrative to be disinterred. We've still got dirt under our fingernails. Art and nature. There seems to be a sort of long-standing idea that one should try and make one's art as natural as possible. I have no idea what that could mean. The trees are as yet showing only minute points of colour. Pink buds, yellow catkins, no leaf. So the ice hockey stadium isn't hidden by the trees. Its walls were painted long ago, in a green thought, in a green shade, unknown anywhere in nature. Likewise, the stripe separating the walkway from the cycle track by the river, itself an olive green, after the meltwater has gone. A truck tyre is visible, and a supermarket trolley pitched there by the Three Musketeers. The black cat glides by on rollerblades. A biplane trails a banner in the sky. Do what comes unnaturally. The varieties of philosophy. The derelicts crowd together on a bench with cigarettes and a little of what you don't fancy at all in a brown plastic bottle. They could be versions of the black cat possessing a calm, as if they'd been cured of something they can't remember. And certainly the river withholds what it might have been, sidling by, mumbling its secrets. Upriver, by the stone cross erected in memory of Saint Opilets, 2 police wait beside a corpse hidden under a blue blanket. The policeman smokes. The policewoman flips her ponytail from under her cap. On the bank opposite to the stone cross, a girl in red pants passes, carrying her baby on her back, papoose style. Her dog runs down the bank and crouches to shit, in that delicate way dogs have when they must do something sanitary. The Lost World. I'm fascinated by old-fashioned adventure stories. Our journey to the centre of the earth begins without the clean living white hunter, without the absent-minded professor, his devoted person of colour servant, his critical daughter, virginal, obsessive cleaner of test tubes. You require somebody who always leaves the toilet seat down. I require somebody who always laughs sincerely at my jokes. The language synchronizes with the earth and opens its golden fissures into which we dive, speaking unintelligible tongues. Crust, mantle, magma are exposed as myths. The river is a surface expression of underground idioms and jargon. The black cat frisks over continents of extinct animal sounds to join us. The circulation of the blood. I've always wondered at the extraordinary genius of James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake, which is one incomplete sentence. And this is a very short tribute to this. Has just begun again like a long kiss renewed between deep breaths, when somebody I can never give myself a chance with asks smilingly, why on earth I'm waiting, and I reply, now I'm not on earth, with the black cat casting a multiplicity of shadows from a number of suns, the river so shallow its waters can't reach my knees as I flick my wrist and cast an endless winding sentence, which? Tactics. Not tactics, tactics. The grammars of all our friends have gathered on the power lines and the topmost twigs of trees, then ascended to inscribe on the past or the future various loudly twittering four-dimensional figures, a murmuration of syntax, tachyons and tachyophs. Nobody will see us coming when we're gone, and do be quick into an ether where we've barely. Tachyderms lift their long hairy snouts, from swamps to trumpet the coming apocalypse. The river suffers tachycardia when swollen with rainwater. Tachyscopes provide no other finding than infinity ends neither sooner nor later. Tachydramas are enacted on pavements in our neighbourhood, a couple shouting at each other in dialect about stains of bodily fluids on knickers which belong to neither of them. The black cat becomes a grin a mile high, which a Gothic church could never accommodate. You and I interlocute, then interlock, and can't be told a part of life's simple pains and pleasures oneself whilst reading the inside pages of the Daily Telegraph featuring an especially scandalous divorce's details, the assassin to leave no phrase alive or identifiable after forensic examination. And finally from this book, the last one, of what we cannot speak but do. A phrase of Wittgenstein, who is referred to in the poem as Louis, and Nietzsche, another philosopher I am fascinated by, is referred to as Fred. I wrote this after contemplating the fact that all our communication equipment is powered by something made from a trace element mined by child labour in the Upper Congo. And this bothers me. I think it should bother everybody. It's time for beautiful disintegrations. Colours splinter, becoming motes in the eyes of their beholders. Louis is noting the family resemblances of different flowers. A rose is a lily, is a chrysanthemum, is his language game. Fred is tending to the horses of instruction in my words. It's pointless to ask if they exist elsewhere when elsewhere is always here. The river is a hyphen seeking to join the empire of the senses to the republic of letters. The black cat is playing inside its own extra-linguistic reality, if she but knew it, though the disadvantage of such self-knowledge doesn't burden a cat. You and I put our arms around each other and these absences of true stories and hug. We're long past living in kingdoms of gold, silver, bronze and iron. Instead we flicker between screens of a world enabled by a trace element mined by child labour in the catchment area of the Upper Congo. And this one book took me 12 years to write. It's called Mouth, and it's a series of variations on the human mouth. And unlike the river and the black cat, I provided endless notes at the end which reveal absolutely nothing. First one, I'm trying to imitate an Anglo-Saxon form. So each long line is divided into two parts which alliterate, have an alliteration with each other. And this one is basically birth, and then making love, and then old age in 3 parts. All the poems are written in 15 lines, 3 stanzas of 5 lines each. The last one I will read, or not read, tonight is actually a poem without words. But first the Anglo-Saxon. Pushed out from another, a mouth opens wide, in a welter of blood, wailing in pain, and complaining greatly, completes great joy. Gurning, toothless, lacking sense, it gives love sense, utterance stocked with milk, praise songs, horns of mead. Mouth opening on mouth, murmurs promise meaning, for 2 whole lives long, for 2 legs to open wide, sighing, sobbing greatly, suffer lovers to great joy, gasping at conclusion, grinning like conquistadors, utterance wonderstruck at new world upon new world. Heeded with little patience, a mouth repeats its tale, desire dwindling to memory, meaning melting away into witless confusion, whimpering like a child, gurning, toothless, lacking sense, lovelessly ignored, utterance rattling to silence, to rictus, a hole in stone. And as I wrote away, everything seemed to become a mouth. Door, vacuum, hiatus, lacuna, space, gap. Aperture, crack, slot, fissure, cavity. Opening, hole, orifice, mouth, north and south, chops, kisser, trap, mush, gob. Threshold, lintel, jam, handle, lock. Lips, teeth, tongue, hard palate, tonsils. Nose, nostrils, septum, sinus, soft palate. Throat, pharynx, voice box, larynx, vocal fold. Diaphragm, belly, lungs. What else? Breath. Swings to and fro on its hinges. Breathe, exhale, sigh, moan, grunt, whistle, snarl, hiss, click, whoop, titter, snigger, guffaw, crow, giggle, wail, sob, bawl, bellow, trill, croon, hum, mumble, speak. And a poem which recalls an incident which happened to me in Saudi Arabia when I was teaching in 1976 in a town called Jizan. One of the sons of the Sultan, who was governor of the town, invited me after school to watch films which were projected on the wall of his father's palace. First of all, he showed me a Bruce Lee film, which was quite enjoyable, and then he showed me another sort of film, which was deeply embarrassing and rather frightening because I could see myself being shut in jail forever for corrupting minors. So I asked him to stop it. And it begins actually in my garden, and suddenly, as happens in this long poem, I jump out of the safety of a garden into a completely different place. Almost forgotten voices sift up like the vapours of the morning dew from the invisible rift in the grass that runs through one neighbour's garden all round the world back through the other neighbour's fence. You looking at my skirt, you naughty boy? A misty image of a lipsticked mouth pouting from the top of a builder's ladder, screened on the back of the Sheikh's palace overlooking a Red Sea port. I, as ever, fearing a trap, therefore opt for the decorous. I preferred the Bruce Lee movie shortly before the night-time call to play. You know, like girls? Oh yes, but veiled. And this I wrote after getting very annoyed with one of these kind of popular paradoxes which pass off as philosophy. I get very irritated by the phrase, the sound of silence. You know, it's a sound of silence, you know, oh, yes, deeply meaningful. Well, it isn't, you know, the sound of silence is no sound at all. Yeah, I have a strong streak of Dr. Samuel Johnson in me, which is very alert to what I feel to be nonsense. You know. The sound of silence, the colour of the dark, the smell of water. You know. If water smells, don't drink it. The sound of silence, beloved of bad poets. What is it when it's at home? Someone waving and shouting behind a window, the movement of the muscles round the lips that the deaf read so exactly? I doubt if there is such a thing as silence for those of us with better hearing. Even in outer space, suited up, there's one's heartbeat and breathing, tintinnabulation, jingling in one's ears. Silence is like life after death. You'll never know it in this life. Look, there is the life to come, its lips pressed everlastingly against the glass, mouthing breath and spittle. And the last but one, I got a bit drunk and had a dialogue with a stone at my cabin in the woods. I held the stone the way I might clasp a lover's chin. I regarded a crease in the stone, a wry pursing of imaginary lips along its whole composed length. I spoke to the stone drunkenly, but it didn't reply. Should I have then cast aside the dumb stone? I wasn't listening. It may have replied, and I didn't catch what it said. I'm sure I spoke to the stone, and its lips moved while I was relishing what I'd said to it, the stone. What was there to relish? I missed the first words from a stone. And the last one I will show to you. It's, as I said, the sequence is written in 3 verses of 5 lines each. And I organized these in first in an ordinary sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then in a Fibonacci series, and then in a ever-decreasing series of circle series. And I will say the epigraph, Béant à la lune, la bouche en zéro, which means let's gape at the moon, the mouth in zero. I will try and recite this poem. Thank you.